Hey guys, it's Lauren. Welcome back to my channel. I wanted to share with you the birth story from my firstborn. So this is back in 2018. I had a pretty unremarkable pregnancy. No real nausea, no symptoms, just kind of plugged along. Nothing really was going on, but I got to 40 weeks. They realized I was not going into labor. They tried to do a membrane sweep to see if it would kickstart. It didn't. So they said that I was going to be induced on, like, my 40 week was a Monday, so I was going to be induced that Sunday. So that Sunday came. I was told to come to the hospital by 7:30. When I first got there, we valeted the car, and then we went upstairs to the triage, which is where they kind of started the balloon Foley, which, for those who don't know, it helps open up the cervix. I can't remember. I think I was around a 3 at that point, and the balloon only went to it only goes to like a 4. So all the nurses were like, "Oh, you're so close. Like, we're having this baby tonight." So that was my mindset, which was completely wrong. My husband and my mom were there with me. So once I was given a room, we hung out, got some sleep, whatever. The next day, so Monday morning, the doctor from my practice who was actually on was the doctor who delivered me. So that was kind of cool. I was like, oh, awesome. The same doctor's going to deliver my baby. Again, not the case. So they let me have one last breakfast. So after breakfast, they started Pitocin. For a while, I was trying to go no medication. However, I also didn't really prepare myself for no medication. So I know a lot of people, if they're doing no meds, they, work on their hypno breathing and different things like that, where I was just la-di-da, I'm going to go no medication. Yeah, no. So every time they'd come in, they'd ask how I was doing. At that point, I was still smiling. And I remember a nurse saying to me, she's like, "Yeah, you're not in pain. You still have a smile on your face." And I didn't understand until I did. So after they started my Pitocin, kind of had a few contractions. It was around 12 o'clock, noon, when the doctor came in and said, "We're going to break your water." So I wasn't really progressing. Nothing was really changing. So the doctor knew once he did my water, it would be game on. So he broke my water, and he did find MECONIUM in the water. So he said that because of the MECONIUM, he would have a NICU team on standby, in the room, in case baby came out not breathing. So I was only allowed a clear liquid diet at that time, so I was super hungry. I was allowed lemon ices and chicken broth, which was unsalted, so it was really kind of gross. But I was having contractions. It wasn't until about dinner time, so 5 o'clock, that I reached the max dose of Pitocin. So I was at a 20. And when they would increase it, they'd increase it by 2 at a time. So it's at a 20. At that point, my contractions were starting to get very painful. So they came in to talk to me about pain management again. My husband and mom both reassured me that just because I chose to have pain meds, I wasn't giving up. So I did agree to an epidural. So I was told I could have one person in the room. So at that point, my husband stayed and my mom left the room. So I have to say, the epidural was the worst part for me. Yeah, it was awful. So the problem with the epidural is that it actually took a few times for them to find the correct spot. So I kept getting these zings. And I, of course, out of reaction, I would go to jump, which you can't do when getting an epidural. So I was screaming, I was crying, it hurt so bad. And Mark started to get worried because Mark's like, why is this happening? Is this supposed to happen? And they reassured him that it is. It's okay. Once we get it placed, she'll be fine. She'll have her medication. So they did give me the little, like the PCA pump. They told me how to use it. So anyways, I have to go get my nails done. I'll be back to finish this. Okay, I am back. It's been a few hours, but got my nails done. Love them. Got my kid off the bus and started prepping dinner. So those things. This is Zoe. Hi. Zoe. Zoe was my first pet. Well, first pet as an adult. So they wanted me to roll on my side. I just wasn't progressing, so they gave me the peanut ball. And at this point, I was able to finally fall asleep for a little bit. And then they wanted me to roll again, and I, reposition. And at that point, I felt like I was going to get sick, and I did. So that, not fun. This is the part that gets a little bit hazy because so much happened. So I'm just going to read through what I wrote on my phone. 1 a.m. So this day is now officially March 27th. It is Tuesday. Now I went in on Sunday night to start this process. So 1 a.m. I woke up because of severe pain. I was asking for more pain medications, and so they came in and gave me a bolus, checked the epidural, and said it was in place. However, it just was not helping. After a little bit of sitting through extreme pain, my mom and my husband asked them to come back in. They checked the epidural and said it was still in place, but that I was maxed out and couldn't have any more medications, and they left again. Then, all of a sudden, the nurse and the doctor came in and told me, we need you to roll to your side. So I started to roll, and they told me I needed to go faster. At this point, I remembered from my maternity unit that usually when they want you to roll and do it quickly, it's because something's going on with the heart rate. So sure enough, they rolled me to my left, then they had me up on my hands and knees, and then they went to the right. Nothing was working. More people came in. Baby's heart rate went down to 60, which for an adult, 60 is great. Lex, stop. For an adult, 60 is great, but for a baby, 60 is not good. It's very low. So heart rate was down to 60 at that point. So what ended up happening was they realized the epidural had in fact come out of place. So all of the medication I was giving myself was not in the right spot, which meant it was not doing anything to help me. Okay, here's the rest of it. They could not stabilize the baby's heart rate and told me that they were going to have to do an emergency C-section. And because I did not have an epidural in place, they'd have to put me under general anesthesia for it. As soon as they had said to me that I was going to get put to sleep, I panicked. Now, I went 40 weeks of not knowing the gender of my baby. I wanted that moment of it's a boy or it's a girl. And now I'm going to be put to sleep while I birth my child, and I won't even get to hear the gender at that moment. So I was just panicked. They started to put an oxygen mask on me to help me get more oxygen to my baby. And I have a history of surgeries and being put to sleep with a mask. So just the mask going on me was kind of another panic moment for me. Okay, so they actually used my call light to call down to say, we have an emergency C-section, we're coming down. And it was kind of in that moment that the baby finally stabilized. So they then, once everything was back to kind of normal, they did talk to me and they said, you don't have to get another epidural, but if baby's heart rate drops again, we are going to need to either, if baby's heart rate drops, then you're going to have to get put to sleep. Because if the epidural is not in, then they cannot do the correct type of block for me to have a C-section and be awake for it. So even though I really, really did not want another epidural after my experience the first time, I did decide to get another epidural. So at this point, my mom stayed with me and Mark stepped out. And actually, while he stepped out, I guess so this is 1 a.m., he called his parents and was crying just because of everything that just happened with me panicking, baby's heart rate, everything like that. Once the epidural was back, I was able to get sleep a little bit. 7:30 in the morning, the doctor came in. She checked me. I was at an 8 and 100% effaced. She told me that at this point, because now again it's Tuesday, that she's going to give me till noon. If I don't progress, then they're going to just do a C-section. Around 10 o'clock, I definitely was feeling more pressure. 10:30, the doctor came in, did a check. There was no changes with anything. Okay, so that we got to noon. And at this point, it's been 24 hours since they broke my water. Usually, they do not want you going past 24 hours. It's a high risk for infection. They just don't want you going to that point. So what my doctor wanted me to do at that point was she gave me a bolus of epidural and wanted me to get some sleep because she said that she thinks I will be able to push to get the baby out instead of having a C-section. 2 p.m. the doctor came in and checked me. I was 10 centimeters and 100% effaced. However, the baby's head was still high, so it was not ready to go. So she said she wanted to give me a few more hours because if I start pushing now, I will be too exhausted by the time the pushes really will count. Around 2:30, I started feeling very, very pushy, to the point that it was actually unbearable and trying not to push. So I had the nurse come in, she got the doctor. The doctor wanted me to do a few practice pushes. When I did a few, she says, yep, it's time to break down the bed. Everyone came in. Now, they started talking to me, and there was talk the very end of the pregnancy that they were afraid the baby was going to be too large and would potentially get stuck or have like a shoulder dystocia, whatever it's called. And so they were prepping me that if that were to happen, she's like, 2 nurses are going to stand, 1 on each side, and she's like, and we're just going to press on your belly and it's going to hurt. She's like, but that's the way we're going to have to get them out. And she's like, I'm sorry. So of course that was in my head as well. But I pushed for about 30 minutes and then they did allow me to use a mirror, so I was able to see the baby's head. So that was actually really motivating and pretty cool to see. And I had my husband on one side of me, I had a nurse on the other, my mom was taking pictures with my phone, and then obviously the doctor was at the foot of the bed. But I remember the push that got the head out was also the push that delivered the rest of the body as well. So it was just truly an amazing experience. Some funny things is that, you know, I'm holding, and the doctor said it's a boy. So we had a little boy. Now that had been from start to finish about 30 hours. And it was a long 30 hours. My family came up to visit that night. So at that point, my dad took my mom home. Obviously, my husband stayed. One of the funny things that I do remember is that after I was finally done and I'm holding the baby and I was starving because I wasn't allowed to eat. So there was a bag of like half-eaten chips on the counter or on the like windowsill. And I was like, am I allowed to eat? And they said, yes. I said, give me that bag. So here I am like eating chips over my newborn baby's head and just, but you know, mama's hungry. Also forgot to kind of put in there. So yes, so baby's head came out, entire body came out. However, and she said it's a boy. The one thing I wanted so bad was to be handed my baby and get immediate skin to skin. However, baby was not breathing as was kind of thought it might happen. So Mark did not get to cut the cord. He was handed right to the NICU team, who was standing in the room, like at the foot of the bed. And they just did a little suctioning, got the meconium out, you know, and then I kept a lot of, well, I always thought I'd be the mom that'd be like, oh my God, my baby, freaking out. And in that very moment, I was just so exhausted that I remember just staring and just being like, oh, there's my baby. Like I just couldn't, I was done. My body was so tired at that point. So yeah, anyways, they transferred us. So he was born at 3:06 in the afternoon. But when we were ready, I was able to get up and walk because the epidural had worn off at that point. And then they transported us upstairs to the postpartum unit, where then we were admitted and got all the teaching and all that fun stuff. Started filling out birth certificate paperwork. And all that good stuff. So it was, looking back on it, to this day, I think I would avoid, if possible, willingly being induced. And I don't know how I could do the epidural thing better, but those were the worst two parts of everything. It wasn't the pushing, it wasn't anything like that, but it was getting the epidural placed for me and just how long the induction process took. And I did not know, going in, the statistics of how many inductions end up in a C-section. So there's nothing wrong with C-sections. Sometimes they're unavoidable. I just did not realize the number. So, anyways. Zoe. At some point, I am going to be recording a video on my second birth story. I did record it earlier in a previous video, end of summer, but it was kind of mixed in there instead of just the video on its own. So I will be making a new video of that. Because it was quite the opposite, if you have not seen that video. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave me a comment down below. Let me know how your birth story went. And if you want to join the family, click that subscribe button as well. Thanks for watching.